I'm also going to send you both a one sheet with takeaways. Okay, so let me share my screen. And 1 second. Okay. And so feel free to, if you've got questions, feel free to just, I can't see the chat right now, but you could just take yourself off mute. We can keep it casual. So negotiating for freelancers. And this is important because as a freelancer, you're negotiating at a lot of different points. It's not just for your salary. It's not just one thing. So I'm curious, can you both, I'm curious like what department you're in and what term. Maxwell, what's your term and department?
In the photo department.
Okay, what term?
7.
Okay. And Mila, how about you?
Illustration
Okay.
and technically second term.
Okay, great. Um, and I feel so I'm the associate director of creative entrepreneurship. It's a new role at Art Center, and we're going to be rolling out programming for freelancers and people that want to, um, make a living in maybe kind of more alternative pathway, not full-time role. So that includes, selling stuff on a third-party site like Etsy, contracting, freelancing, starting an independent studio. So really any permutation where you're wanting to get paid for your creative skills. So we're going to talk about introduction to negotiation, key moments when you will negotiate as a freelancer, tactics, how to prepare, and then some key scripts that you might want to use. And that will be included in the one sheeter. And then I've got some announcements and we'll do Q&A. Okay, so negotiation is a skill and it's a collaborative process. A lot of people don't think about it as a collaboration, but it really is. And I think that'll help you take some of the, if you feel anxious about it, it makes it feel less anxiety inducing because it's a collaborative process. And you're really trying to reach an agreement about what the value exchange is between two people or two parties, right? Between you and a company. Negotiation is advocating for yourself and the value that you bring. It's a skill that anyone can get really good at with practice and effort. It's collaborative. And the reason that we do it is that it reduces conflict because it helps set expectations up early before the work starts. It removes uncertainty on both sides, and it helps you and the client have clarity and alignment about what's happening, what is being done. So understanding our relationship to negotiating, I'm guessing that it makes you a little anxious. It does for pretty much everyone when they're first starting out and learning how to do it. And there's a lot of reasons for this, right? It's not fun to have conflict, and negotiating can feel like it is a conflict, or rejection. If I push back, maybe will they still like me or will they still offer me the project? Lack of practice, can make us feel like we don't know what we're doing or we're not doing it right. It can feel like a power imbalance. They are the client, they've got money, I'm just lucky to be here. Self-worth can be on the line. They're not just evaluating your work, but if we as creative people, our work is so personal, it can feel like they're evaluating us. And then there's also cultural conditioning. We've been taught that asking for more is greedy or ungrateful. So understanding our relationship to negotiating money, because money also is a separate topic that can make us feel a little anxious. And we're taught it's taboo. Our self-worth can feel like it's tied to our net worth, fear of rejection or losing an opportunity if you push back. lack of practice and transparency, and then we equate money with power and shame. So when you're starting out, or when you're just one freelancer that's negotiating against a big company or a client, that can be intimidating. So I'm going to invite both of you to reframe this. Negotiating is a design problem, and you're collaborating with the client to solve it, right? Like, they're coming to you because they've got a problem they can't solve on their own. They need your help, and you've got the skills and the talent to solve their problem. They've got money. Let's let this person in. They've got money and a problem, and you have the solution, and you need to make a sustainable living. So you both have something that each other needs. And that's why this is a design problem. You're sorting out, okay, how are we going to figure this out? How are we going to solve your problem? And how are you going to help support my sustainable business? Hey, Nicolette, thanks for joining us. We're just getting started.
Sorry, I'm late.
All good. What term and department are you in?
I'm currently in illustration and going into my 5th term.
Okay, great. We have Mila, who is from illustration as well. And correct, Mila?
Yes.
Yeah, and Maxwell is in the photo department.
Awesome. Sounds
Yeah.
great.
So we're talking about why it can sometimes feel weird to negotiate, right? It's like negotiation can feel awkward. Money is can be a taboo topic. So there's like lots of reasons why this is, just makes us uncomfortable. There's also cultural and contextual expectations in the US workforce. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Negotiation is expected. It's like literally they're expecting it. They will not throw out the final number to you. And it's not rude. So just know that negotiating is part of it. Is what is expected. You also want to make sure that you use contracts, not just vibes. That can be hard, right? Because most of the projects are probably coming through your network. They're through your community, or maybe it's like a friend of someone in your network. So it can feel like, it can feel like, oh, we're close enough. It's like, it's a friend of a friend. We don't need a contract. You really, even more reason to have a contract is just to get everything in writing and make sure it's all clear. You are saving yourself down the road, which we'll talk about. Hey, Diana, welcome. So if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. It's just really important. And then also, confidence in the US workforce is perceived as competence. This is hard. When you're starting out, it's hard to just like go out there and instantly have confidence. So fake it until you make it. We'll talk more about this later in the presentation, but really, like, when you have confidence about your work and you show that in your tone of voice, or you say your price, this is my price. And then you stop talking, because sometimes when we're nervous, we can keep talking. And they are looking at that. That makes them feel more comfortable going with you, because they want someone who is confident that they can solve the problem that they have. They have a problem they can't solve on their own. That's why they need you and your skills. And so when you show that you're a little anxious or nervous or don't have confidence, it actually makes them a little bit nervous as well, right? We pick up on each other's energy, for better or worse. So this comes with time. It comes with practice. So just just know that being bold and pretending to be confident, if you're not totally feeling it, will make them feel more comfortable. Okay, so a couple definitions. Cost is the sum of what it takes to make something. And this includes raw materials. So say you're designing logo and business cards for your client. The cost is, how much you're charging for the designs. So all the design work, the research, all that stuff, the revisions. And what is the cost of ordering the business cards? Those would be considered raw materials. Say you have to buy a piece of equipment to do the project that they're asking. That would also be considered raw materials. Pricing is the combination of cost and the profit you want to make. And we're not going to go deep into this. This would be a different workshop, and we can talk about it more later on. If this is something that you want a separate workshop for, I would be happy to do that. And we also have resources on our website. And then the value of something is subjective, and it's emotional, and it's based on the buyer. So something to think about, and you really want to do value-based pricing as opposed to hourly. Because say, for example, you're doing a logo. Someone asks you to do a logo and you're like, you know what, that took me 5 hours. So, I want to make $30 an hour, and you times that. Say this logo helps them helps them reframe what they're all about, and attracts new clients for the next couple of years, and it brings in all this business for them. That's worth a lot more than just your 5 hours of time. And that's something, as a creative entrepreneur, and you all are creative entrepreneurs, thinking like business mindset. What is the value that your work provides? Not just how many hours it took you to do. Okay. It's really important to think about that. Okay, so let's talk about some key moments of when you're negotiating. And actually, this happens a lot. You're negotiating a lot before you even do any work. Like, all of this negotiating happens before you do any work. And it happens because you put it in the contract, and then both parties sign the contract, and then you're ready to do the project. So the process typically happens over email. You actually do a lot of the negotiating over email. It'll start off like someone will reach out to you via social or email. They'll get your contact and they'll say, Nicolette, we need your services. Can we jump on a call? Can we tell you what problem we have? And we're hoping you can solve it. And you're like, sure, I'd love to. And so the discovery call is usually in person or video, but it's synchronous, right? You're hearing what they're telling you what they need. You're listening intently. This is a discovery call. You're listening intently. You're taking lots of detailed notes because you're going to refer back to this. And this is not the time. You shouldn't be doing really much talking at all. The talking that you should be doing is just asking questions. You're trying to get as much information as you possibly can. And then they might say, so how much would that charge? How much would that cost? Do not answer. This is not a time for you to quote anything. You don't have all the information yet. You're just gathering the information. And so then you would tell them, you know what, give me a day or two. I want to think about this, and I want to be thoughtful about how I approach this problem. I'm really excited about it. I can do it. And I will get back to you in 24 to 48 hours with a proposal. Then you go away and you do some research and you think about what they told you. You look over your notes, and that's when you would start writing your proposal. You're also going to probably have additional questions, like, oh, shoot, I didn't ask when this was due. I didn't ask like the usage rights. Are they wanting to use my logo like internationally, or is it just in the US? So you'll have more questions that you didn't think to ask before, and that's fine. So it does, for better, I actually think it's really helpful that most of the negotiating you'll do is over email, because it gives you time to think through, and you have it in writing. So it's not a contract, but it can act as a way to like refer back to your notes, and it's just helpful. Okay, so here are some key moments. Setting your rate or your project fee. So this is after the discovery call, and the reason you would do this is to ensure that you're paid fairly for your time and your expertise and the value that you bring. So really try to move away from basing your project fee on how many hours it takes. really think about the problem that you're solving for them and what is that worth? What is the value that your work is bringing to them? But you can, so some options when you're setting your rate or your project fee is like, is it hourly versus project? Is it pricing tiered? I recommend always when you do a proposal, offer 3 options. And so that it, depending on what their budget is, they can lean in. They will most likely choose the middle option. So keep that in mind. But also, this is when you would negotiate deposits. If it's a long project, or actually not even if it's a long project, it's customary to ask for a deposit up front, sometimes 30%, sometimes 50%. You can, if they need the project very quickly, you can include a rush fee. Also licensing fees. So finding out if they want your artwork, like how are they going to use that? And so that would be, change what you would charge them. And so, for example, like how this might look, if a client's like, oh, could we do this, all this work that I need for $800? And then you could say, for that budget, we can scale the scope down from 2 options instead of 3, right? So that's where you can, that's a little micro negotiation. Another point is on the scope of work. So again, all of this is going to happen, all the negotiating should really happen up front, because then what you agree upon goes into the contract and you have the contract signed by both parties, and then you start the work. Do not start doing any work until you have the contract. It helps both of you. It really will set you up for a great relationship and great project. So you would do this upfront. If the work needs to be expanded, projects shift all the time. And so it's totally normal for a project to change or midway through, right? Maybe they need to like stop doing one part of the project that you're working on and do something else, whatever it is. So you might need to also negotiate the scope of work in the middle of the project, but you'd start off knowing very clearly what you're working on, what's expected. And this is really to protect against scope creep. And so scope creep is when, I say, oh, Nicolette, I need logo. Could you design a logo for me and a website? And you're like, great, absolutely. And then I'm like, well, part of the rebrand also includes, I'm going to need letterhead. I'm going to need like, other assets that have my logo. So can you just include that in the project as well? That's scope creep. We had initially talked about 2 deliverables. We talked about a logo and we talked about a website. And now I'm bringing up other forms. That's scope creep. And it happens all the time, and that's fine. They're excited. Maybe they love the work you're doing. Like, oh my gosh, I want more pieces. I want Nicolette to do like more of this work. That's fine. You can say, I'm happy to, additional revisions or additional pieces are will cost you this much for my hourly rate or project rate. So you really want to be clear about the number of deliverables, the specifics, how many revisions, oh, this price includes 2 rounds of revisions. And that would go in your contract. If you don't have something like that in your contract, and I come back and I'm like, oh, Nicolette, this is great, but I'm going to need another revision. And you say, well, Maria, that's 3 revisions, and I'm going to have to charge you. And I say, well, Nicolette, I thought that's not in the contract. I thought that I had unlimited revisions until I'm happy with the project. So you see, being very specific in the contract will save you down the line from having awkward confrontations, right? Or having like misunderstandings. So you want to be really clear, as specific as you possibly can in the beginning. Sometimes you won't know everything, but like, what's the file format? What's the usage rights? All of that good stuff. Timelines and deadlines. So this is another really important one. When the client wants work delivered faster than originally agreed upon, you can say, yeah, no problem. I can prioritize this with a 25% rush fee. Otherwise, it's we're gonna have to stick to our original schedule. So extended timelines, stage deliveries, all of that stuff. Again, it's a collaboration, right? So you all are figuring out, they're like, I really need this. You're like, that's great. I can do that for you, but this is what it's going to cost you, or this is what I need in return. Payment terms. So again, this would go into the contract, and this is about how and when you'll get paid. And there's lots of different arrangements. It really kind of depends on the type of project. If it's a quick project, then you maybe wouldn't ask for a deposit up front. Maybe you would. If it's a really long project, maybe you ask for monthly payments. You know, if they're going to pay you $30,000 for this 6-month project, you know, maybe you ask for, what is that? You know, 5,000 a month every month to kind of help you have more evenness in your income. So oftentimes what you'll hear clients say is they'll pay net 60 or net 30. What that means is they will pay you 60 days after you give them an invoice, or 15 days after an invoice, the net 15, net 30, net 45. And when you send them an invoice, and that's basically, that alerts them that it's time for them to pay you. And so when they say net 30 or net 60, whatever the number is, it's from the time you give them an invoice. So you want to be, you know, make sure that you're invoicing, you know, time in a timely way. And then you can push back. This I have found personally, as someone who's freelanced in the past, companies, I typically don't push this. You know, I'll ask for a deposit up front, but companies tend to be pretty, you know, they have like a standard amount of time. Every now and then there is one company, I don't remember which one it was, that has a net 90 days, which is, I feel, kind of irresponsible, like just not right. So maybe you can push back, but it's pretty standard, like net 30 or net 60. But everything's negotiable. It doesn't hurt to ask. You know, you can always ask. The worst they can say is be like, you know what, we can't, Maria. I wish we could. Our legal department, it's just like how our system is set up. It's like, okay, great. Intellectual property and licensing. So this is really important when you're making original works of art. You want to make sure that you retain ownership unless they are paying you to own it. They're paying you a buyout fee. And this is a bigger conversation that we can have a workshop on if you all are interested in. But it really does matter up front, knowing if you're licensing this or if they are expecting to own it, because that has implications of what you would charge. And yeah, and here's an example. The client's like, we'll own everything, right? You could say, well, this quote includes limited use rights, but for full ownership, it would cost you this much, right? So it's all, you can be very friendly and firm when you are, you know, creating your boundaries or letting them know what you need. Okay, client visibility and credit. This is so important too, because the way you will grow your business and your practice and your reputation is your portfolio. It's everything, right? So the work that you do, you need to be able to show it in your portfolio. If you can't, then I would encourage you to have charge a little bit more for private use. So, and some clients, they'll give you a contract that's generic and you can push back. Oftentimes the kind of boilerplate generic contract that they give you will say, oh, you can't use, you know, any of the work that you do for us, you can't use in your portfolio. I have found if I ask the client that, you know, I'm like, hey, I would want to make sure I can use this in my portfolio. If I can't, I'm gonna have to charge you a private use fee. They usually are like, oh, that's fine. You know, that's just our like generic company contract that we use, but that's fine. Or they might be like, actually, this is really, you know, the work you're doing isn't going to be released for another year and a half. You cannot show it. will pay the extra. But you just want to talk about that ahead of time. You also want to try to get public credit when you can, if it's relevant. Termination and kill fees. So projects end early all the time, and it has nothing to do with you. Things shift. So you just want to make sure that you're compensated for the time you spent on a project and the opportunity costs. Maybe you turned down a project because you said yes to this one that you thought was going to be 6 months, and a month in, they had the project ended, right? For something that was beyond your control. And now you're like, oh my gosh, now I don't have any income. I don't have a client. So again, this needs to be negotiated ahead of time in the contract. You can't ask for a kill fee after a project's ended early and it wasn't in the contract. So, the client tells you, oh, so sorry, we've decided to cancel. And then you remind them, oh, in the contract, there's a 25% kill fee for early termination. And if you should look into this language, you can research it, because, if a project's 6 months, you'll want to be specific, and, there's specific language that you can use for, like when the project, if the project is 80% completed, you did 80% of the work, then maybe the kill fee is you get 100% payment for the project. If the project died, 15% of the way in, you only did 50% of the work, then, maybe you don't get the whole project fee. So it really kind of depends how much work you've done, but you just want to make sure that your time is compensated. Working conditions. This is important too. Don't it's easy to just kind of not think about, oh, what is the expectation? Are they going to we'll hop on a daily call at 9 a.m. EST and we're in LA, so that's 6 a.m. your time. That's not going to work. So you need to set your boundaries. You need to know what you're comfortable with. And the best thing you can do is talk ahead of time with the client. How often would they like to be in communication with you? Who are you going to be working with? Maybe it's a really collaborative project. You're going to be working with some of their team internally to do your part of the work. And so you just want to make sure that you know what's expected of you on a daily basis, like how you'll be working. Maybe they expect you to be on site. And this is really to protect your boundaries and your focus, right? You don't want to have someone who's constantly pinging you for little details or asking questions and you're not able to really focus and do the work. So this would be like meeting schedules, what tools they want you to use, or that the team uses. What are the communication protocols, and what is the expected availability? And then retainer agreements or ongoing work. So when a client wants to keep you on month to month, that's great, but they need to pay you for that accessibility, right? Because you need to have predictable income and a clear scope, right? You're not at their beck and call. You're not a full-time employee. So if they want to have you on call, that's a retainer agreement. And those are great. If you're like, yeah, you pay me $1,000 and you can have me 10 hours a month, whenever we can schedule it. So you want to think about that. Notice periods, rollover hours, all of that stuff. But that's great to be accessible to them and be on retainer. Okay, this is where a diagram goes that I did not put in. Okay, so let's talk tactics. And anchoring is a common tactic, and it's the first number that is presented, and it tends to influence the rest of the negotiation. It's really quite amazing. So if you throw out $3,000 first, even if they counter, the whole conversation is going to stay closer to that first number than if you said nothing. If you're inexperienced, then it's best to let them say the first number, because chances are they're going to throw out a higher number than you would, right? You're still kind of building your confidence. If you feel confident, in your pricing, then throw out the first number. But you always want to say the ideal rate, not what the minimum that you would do it for. Because again, everyone's expected to negotiate. So that first number is just the starting point, no matter who throws it out. Trade, don't cave. So when they ask for a lower price, that's fine. They might have like a budget that they have to work with, and you can offer to reduce the scope instead of just saying yes, right? So again, you're a problem solver. This is a design challenge that you and the client are trying to figure out together, right? They've got this problem. You're going to help them solve it. You need to pay rent and have a sustainable business. And so you both are trying to figure out, okay, what are we doing here? What's the value exchange? What are you going to pay me and what up for the problem I'm going to solve for you? And they might, yeah, just have a limit. And so get creative with how you can make it work for you financially and for them. This could be, lots of different ways, right? Like maybe if they ask for a discount, you can say, sure, but I need a longer timeline. This would allow you to work on a couple other projects, right? And you can do this project in between your other projects. Or maybe you ask for creative freedom. Maybe it's like, hey, I want to have more control creatively over what I do. Or maybe you ask for public credit or milestone payments. There's so many different ways to kind of negotiate and make it work for you. Silence is a tool. Silence often makes people really uncomfortable, especially when you're already negotiating, right? It's like when you're just starting out, negotiating can feel like weird and awkward, especially talking money. And so we tend to, when we're nervous, fill silences. So what I would say when you state your rate, stop talking and let them respond. It's a really powerful tool. So, because again, if you're nervous, it will make them feel nervous. Like we're humans, we pick up each other's energy. And so this is worth practicing, but state your rate and then stop talking. US business culture often uses silence strategically. It's okay to pause, to take time. And again, most of this negotiating is going to happen over email, right? It's like you're going back and forth. You have that initial discovery call and where you're getting all the information about the project, the deadline, what they're looking for, all that good stuff. Then you're going to go away. You're going to follow up with a proposal that you'll send via email. And so you'll be going back and forth, and which I think makes it a little bit easier for negotiating. But don't interpret a delay in response as rejection. It's often part of the game that they're playing. We talked about this before. Package options, give them a couple options so that they have some agency and choice, especially if they're dealing with a tight budget. So, basic branding package is 1,000, full package with strategy, 2,000. You want to be this a little broad. You want to be more specific on deliverables. People tend to avoid the cheapest and the most expensive option. So the middle option always feels a little safe. Often the highest priced option is designed to make the middle option look a little more reasonable. So keep that in mind. And then you want to frame in terms of value, not hours. This can be hard. This is hard because it's subjective and it's really up to the buyer, right? What it means to them. And that's what's helpful in the discovery call is you're trying to suss out what they need. They think they need a logo. Oftentimes clients don't even understand the real problem that they have, right? So you're listening deeply and you might spot that they need something else that they haven't thought of. They might think they need a logo, but really what they need is, an event series that helps them connect with their clients in a different way. So you really want to, make sure that you're actively listening. They're coming to you because you're an expert and you're going to help solve their problem. And you want to focus on the impact that your work will have. So, this logo helps position your brand and attract your ideal customer. It's not just 5 hours of design. Collaborative, not combative. Negotiation isn't a fight. And thinking about it in terms of a collaboration and a design challenge that you're solving with the client will make it feel less stressful, right? It's like you're figuring this out together, the two of you, and it will help you build a really strong relationship, right? You're have this collaborative mindset. So you'll use phrases like, hey, let's figure out how to make this work for both of us. Yeah, I realize you've got kind of a tight budget. This project's interesting. I need to make sure that it works for me financially, but let's figure this out, right? And then you get creative. You're building trust along the way. Okay, preparation. So you definitely want to make sure that you research. So before you even do the discovery call, you'll know, right, who this company is or client, and do this research before the discovery call if possible, because it will help you ask better questions. But for sure, do it after the discovery call. You want to research the company, kind of understand what their values are. Where are they in the market? Are they like the leader in the market? Are they kind of struggling? And where are they going, so that you can understand kind of what the big challenge is, not just like, oh, we need a logo. It's like, well, actually, you're losing market share because you've got this really strong competitor. So let's think about this like a bigger picture. Use LinkedIn and search to research the specific person, right? So it's important to research the company that they work for, but you want to also research them specifically, because at the end of the day, they're humans, and you want to connect with them on a human level, on a personal level. You want to understand what their motivations are. That will help you know what value that you're providing, right? When you understand the motivation behind it. You also want to know what the going rate is for the type of freelance work that you do. And you want to know the freelance range for people with your level of experience and your set of skills. And there's lots of different websites that you can do this. You can also ask your peers. There's lots of ways, but this takes time. So you just want to make sure you're going in and you're setting a rate that is in line with what the industry standard is. Then make sure you decide in advance what your ideal rate would be, and then what your walkaway point is. Know and articulate your value. What problem are you really solving for the client? Think beyond deliverables. What's the impact this work will have? You also want to be able to talk about why you're uniquely qualified to solve this problem. So it depends on the situation. If they reach out to you, that's great, because they've come through a recommendation or they've seen your portfolio. So they already think that you are they believe you are an expert and can solve their problem. And when you're proposing a solution to them, that's a great time to reinforce why you can uniquely solve this problem, what your experience or approach or results would be. You want to define your offer. You want to be really clear about the scope. You want to know the ideal fee for this project, have a best case scenario, an acceptable number, and then the walk away number. And it is very much okay to walk away from an opportunity that isn't right. There will be plenty more. And then practice. I'm telling you, like every professional I know, we all start out feeling awkward and nervous to negotiate money. And every time we do it, we get better at it, get more confident. It doesn't feel so emotionally charged, but you can practice on your own, right? There's lots of ways. You don't have to like do all the projects to actually get the practice. You can practice out loud in front of a mirror, role play with a friend. I've also used ChatGPT to role play. Like on ChatGPT on your phone has an audio feature. So you can tell it like, hey, play the client. This is the project. This is the challenge they have. This is who I am. And can you ask me questions and negotiate with me. Okay, so during the negotiation, we talked about this is really the discovery call. You're practicing active listening. And this is helpful because A, you want to make sure you're getting it right, you're taking notes. But it also builds trust, right? When like you feel like you're being listened to, you like the person more. So you can say, hey, let me make sure I heard you correctly. You said you needed this, and it's because of this problem, and this the deadline is this. And then they can correct, right? You might have got some of it wrong and they can correct it. Or they'd be like, yeah, oh my gosh, she totally gets me. She's like listening. You want to take detailed notes because this is how you will then go away and figure out what your solution is to them. What are you going to propose? Never accept terms on the spot. The discovery call should not be about committing to the project. You should say, oh my gosh, I'm really excited about this. I can definitely help you with this project. I'm able to do this work. I need to go and I want to be thoughtful about it. I want to give some time to think about and come up with a proposal, and I'll get back to you in 24 to 48 hours and we can go from there. So you always want to make sure that you will get back to them. You want to get back to them quickly and give them a time frame. Let them know, they should know when they're going to hear from you. And that you'll follow up with a proposal. We talked about this before. Let them throw out the first number. Chances are they're going to throw out a higher number than you would. And then pay attention to the body language. Try to mirror their body language in a respectful way. This also psychologically, it's like makes people like us and feel more trust when we're kind of mirroring each other's body language. Okay. Scripts for key moments. And this will also be in your takeaway. But feel free to, if you want to do screen grabs of the presentation, that's totally fine. Okay, so your opening rate anchor. Oh, for a project like this, my typical fee is around $5,000, depending on scope and timelines. All of a sudden, you've just dropped an anchor in there. Now the negotiation is going to center around 5,000, right? They're probably going to come down, but like you've just anchored it. Reframing discount requests. If budget is tight, we can reduce the scope. Would you prefer fewer deliverables or a longer timeline? Right? So you're always, if they're asking for this, you're figuring out what your boundary is. How can you make that work? What are you going to ask for in return? Holding boundaries with kindness. I love to make this work. I need to stay within a range that reflects the value and time commitment. That's such a nice way, right? You're holding your boundary. You're making sure you're showing that you respect your skill and your time, and that will make them feel more confident in hiring you. Responsible no's. Thanks for taking the time to share more about your project. It's not the right fit for me at this time, but I'll think about who in my network I could recommend that you reach out to. Right? This is of a project, maybe they were asking for something that you just don't know how to do, or maybe the timeline's not right, or their budget is too low. You can have them, you can save face with this. It doesn't make them feel like a jerk for kind of lowballing you. And I always offer this. And also, it is, if you can connect people, this is still helping to solve their problem, right? Like they've got this problem and it's time sensitive to them. It might not be a big deal for you. You might listen and be like, I don't want to do that project. It's not for me, whatever reason. They still have this project. And if you can connect them to someone else that might be a better fit in your network, you just like solve the problem for the client, you've like helped them, and you've helped someone in your network. And that is how you will get more projects. If you can help your friends and people in your network get projects and work, that will come back to you. So, and the client also will remember that. Okay, so now we're going to recap. We've got 2 slides for recaps, and then we'll do some Q&A. So you think of negotiation as a design problem. You all are designers and you are solving this problem collaboratively with the client. So it's just like a design brief. Negotiation is about solving for mutual goals, and you have real constraints, right? You're figuring out what's the edge of this project. What do you need to make it work financially and time-wise and all that and work conditions? And what do they need? So you want to approach negotiation with curiosity. And that's where asking questions during the discovery call is really important. Make sure that you go into the discovery call with some questions. When I take notes, I always start my Google Doc with a list of questions that I have. And then that's where I take notes. And sometimes they answer those questions as they're talking and talking about the project. And then at the end, they'll be like, do you have any questions for me? And if you don't have questions, that's a red flag for them, right? Like I'd be like, I just told you all this stuff about a project. You don't have one question for me. So make sure that you have questions you can think about ahead of time. And you want to really listen closely as well and advocate for yourself. No one knows what you need except you, right? You need to advocate for yourself. And this is not greedy. It's not rude. It is being a professional. Negotiation is a skill and you get better with practice and effort. Anyone can be excellent at negotiating. It really is just about practice and effort. Responsible knows it's okay to walk away from something that isn't right. Negotiation is expected. If you don't do it, that's also maybe not a red flag, but it's to the client, but it's a sign that you're inexperienced. Confidence is perceived as competence. And I know this can be hard culturally. This can be hard. For introverts, it can be hard. So it's helpful to practice, and you will get more confident the more often you do this. Anchoring is the first number that is said, and it influences the rest of the negotiation. Let them throw out the first number unless you feel confident. Trade, don't cave. If you give something up, then ask for something back. Silence is a tool, so don't rush to fill quiet moments. After saying your rate, stop talking and let them respond. This will typically, the negotiation, as we mentioned, will mostly happen over email or through a proposal. So it's asynchronous. So if you don't hear back from them for a day or two or whatever, a week, don't take it personally. They get busy. And you want to focus on the impact of your work, not how long it takes. And this might be hard to do at first. Reach out. This is something you can reach out to me for. You can get an advising appointment. You can reach out to professors, peers, mentors, but really start thinking about your work in terms of the value, the end result, not just how long it takes you to do. Be solid about your rate before you go in, and know your walkaway point. Don't accept any terms during the discovery call. That's about you listening and learning more about the problem that they have. And you got this. They are reaching out to you because you are the expert. So that's the end of the negotiating presentation, but I have a couple announcements, and then I'd love to open this up to some Q&A. So the first announcement, and you're going to hear this officially tomorrow, but so you're the first ones to learn about this. But Art Market is going to be at the alumni reunion. It's actually September 26th, I believe. And we are starting to accept applications tomorrow or today through August 29th. And so I encourage all of you to apply. It's open to students, all terms, all majors. International students, unfortunately, can't participate because you have to legally be able to make money in the US. But yeah, we're going to offer an optional application prep workshop. We have spots for 50 people. So I imagine it will be competitive, but we can talk more about that. Then next week, we have an IP lawyer, entertainment lawyer, who is coming to talk to us about how to maximize the law for your freelance work. And so this is a great opportunity to like be able to ask a lawyer any questions that you have. And then I am doing creative entrepreneurship advising, and I have advising sessions every week. We just started doing it. For some of you who joined a little bit late, I'm Maria. I'm the Associate Director of Creative Entrepreneurship in the Creative Careers Department. And it's a new role. I'm new to Art Center. So we're going to be rolling out all these new programs for you all, which I'm really excited about. Art Market is one of them. And yeah, so if you're curious, if you have any questions or anything like that, you can find me on Connect, make an appointment. And then yeah, let's open it up for any questions that you have. And I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And feel free to also, if you're feeling shy, feel free to put any questions in the chat. Nicolette.
You said your name was Maria, right?
Yeah,
Nice to meet you. Welcome to Art Center.
thank you. It feels so
Yeah.
good to be here. My passion is helping artists and designers make a living doing what they love. And I've spent my whole career in the business side, like helping creatives pivot or accelerate their career. And so it feels really good to be in higher ed. It's my first time in higher ed.
Great. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I had a question about some of the negotiation tactics and specifics to whenever you are a freelancer in the industry. Let's say, for an example, you're working for your friends who opened a company, and at first you're not getting paid, but later on down the line they're saying, "Oh, we have financing now. We can start paying our freelancers." And they mention, "Oh, here's an invoice send us an invoice and we'll start paying." When you are working for free all that time, but then all of a sudden start transitioning into that paid territory, how do you handle that situation when they're your friends? You mentioned earlier when even if you have friends or like close acquaintances, you should have a contract involved. But how do you do that whenever you don't know their budget or they won't give you specific details?
Mhm. And that's a great question. And did you ask if they had a budget?
Yes.
Okay. So this is something that we can talk about in more depth because it really depends, right? Like, how do you set your rate? It starts with figuring out what do you want to get paid for the year, right? Like, what do you want your ideal yearly salary to be? And then what are your expenses? And then you figure out, okay, so if I want to get paid, 60,000 a year and my yearly expenses are, let's say, I want to get paid 40,000 a year and my yearly expenses are 30,000, so that's 70,000 a year. Then what does that mean divided by 12, right? So there's a way to figure out, 12 months a year. And then if it's like a day rate or like say the project takes you a month, then that might be like, okay, so 1/12 of your yearly salary is this price. But I would say let's talk about that specifically, like in an advising appointment, because I think one, it's figuring out for you what is your going rate in general and having that in your back pocket, because that will help you um, be able to answer that question in different contexts, right? Like if it's a long-term project, if it's a short-term, having a sense for what you need to be making every month will help you gauge kind of what you should be charging. It is a little tricky not having been paid. And did you get equity before or nothing?
It was more of like a startup, and now we're starting to gain traction as a company. So it's getting to that level where a contract might be necessary, but it's still very like it's vaguely talked about still.
Yeah. I would encourage you to, yeah, like get a contract, even if they don't have money now, but it's for equity. I would get on that as soon as you can, especially because you've been working with them for how long?
About a year.
Okay. Yeah, so you've invested a lot. And so just making sure that you're compensated, even if they don't have the money now, they could be giving you equity. Yeah, I'd love to talk to you about this more in a one-on-one. I also would want to do a little bit of research too, because that's a little bit out of, I want to talk to people that have some experience in that as well.
Yeah, that'd be
Cool.
great. You said we can make an appointment via the Connect website.
Yeah, I can send when I send a follow-up tomorrow to all of you, I'll include that in the email of how you can make an appointment. But it's on Connect and it's under advising. But yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Mila,
Hi.
hey.
So thank you so much for this presentation. I feel like everything has been very well disclosed and right straight to the point. I wanted to ask though, when we do the proposal, all of these fees, right? Like the license fee or the extra time fee that you said that we include in the contract itself. Do we also lay this out in the proposal or not?
Good question. So there's kind of so you have the discovery call, and then, that's when you hear about all their challenges, their visions, what they want to do, all that stuff. Then you go away and you think about, okay, this is what they said they needed. How would I solve this problem? And you kind of draft up the idea, the proposal of the concept. And then you might say, there might be some terms in that, like, oh, I could, I could do this in a month, like based on what they have told you, then you would start to include that in the proposal. Oh, for this next month, because I know that that's your deadline, here's what I can propose. And then they're like, oh, that's great. And then you would be going back and forth and you'd say, okay, well, what's your usage fee? Or like, in the proposal, you might say like this fee includes 2 rounds of revisions. I can do it in the time frame that you mentioned in the discovery call. So you're essentially like getting as much information as you can in the discovery call. Then you're coming up with how you would solve it as the problem solver that you are, and putting in as many of the terms as you possibly can. Um, there's like the proposal, which is kind of like the scope of work. And then say they agree to that. They're like, oh, we love your take. We love how you would solve this problem for us. And you're like, great, let me put this in a contract. And then you take that kind of scope or that proposal that's a little bit broad, right? You talk about the actual work. Now you're ready to talk about how the work is going to get done, the business side of it. And so that's when you would say, okay, here are the terms. This includes, you get into more detail. Here's if it's a kill fee. Here's, this assumes my work. This includes, 3 meetings a week, or whatever it is. If you want to put in kind of terms for how you'd want to work, so it essentially goes from discovery call, then proposal, right? You're like following up. You're like, I heard you, and here's how I would solve your problem, and here's the deliverables, and here's what it would cost you. And they're like, great. Or they push back, and then you make revisions, and they're like, okay, this sounds great. When can you start? And you're like, let me put this in a contract. So that's when you include all the additional, like the kill fee, any payment structure, revisions, all of that stuff. And then they look at the contract and they're like, okay, Mila, this looks great. I'm ready to sign it. Or they're like, oh, Mila, sorry, we thought this was a buyout, but here in your contract, you have it just as a licensing fee. And you're like, oh, no problem. The buyout fee is then this much, right? As opposed to the licensing. So again, it's back and forth. It's very collaborative. It's really a conversation. And you're getting more and more detailed focused as you get farther down that path, right? It wouldn't make sense. It's like a first date, right? You're not going to talk about you know, how you two would do the dishes or how you would do chores together, living together on the first date. You're like, let's see if we like each other. Okay, now let's see if we're, as we're getting more serious, and we move in together, you talk about more detailed stuff. So it really is a combination of just kind of getting more and more detailed. But are you familiar with contracts? Have you used contracts or kind of taken a look at them?
No, not
Okay.
precisely. I have worked in a freelancer website that is called um Upwork, in
Uh-huh.
which normally I have received contract from the clients. I am not familiar with making one myself, and that was gonna lead to my next questions, with which is if we need a lawyer to make the contract for us, or how does that actually work in a
Yeah,
legal way?
great question. So if it's in writing, it holds up. You don't need a lawyer. I've personally never used a lawyer as a freelancer and contractor. Some people want to, if it's kind of, a bigger project and it makes sense. You do not need
Okay.
to pay for a lawyer. And there's tons of contract templates that you can
Mhm.
use. I can send a link. I did a workshop couple weeks ago, basics of freelancing, or no, freelance without fear.
Mhm.
And it talks about different contracts and it shows examples. So I can link that one as well. And you can just go
Oh, that
back
would
and
be
watch
awesome.
that. Hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. But it's basically, and it holds up. If it's in writing and you both sign it, that would hold up in court. That is a
Okay,
contract. You don't need a lawyer.
perfect.
Yeah. What else? Any other questions that people have, or if they want to talk about their experience? Maybe I said something that didn't resonate or it did.
Yeah, I'd like to ask another question.
Yeah.
Um, Earlier you mentioned also that um, if requested, we can ask for another workshop for how to negotiate, or it was along those terms. Do you think we can do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm building out content for freelancers, and this is a new role. So it's kind of, we're starting from scratch in a way. And it's helpful to know what you all have questions about, like what would be really valuable to you, because, I can work on that content.
Mhm.
Um, are you saying, Nicolette, that you'd want to actually practice negotiating, or is that what would you want beyond this workshop?
Yeah, negotiating is, I think, important because it's not really talked about within our artists don't really speak about it that much.
Hmm.
We're more focused on the artwork rather than the business side. But I find personally that I'm more business driven rather than artist driven. So it would be cool to learn more about negotiations and how those take place. And sometimes they're in person or online, like you said, via email or
Hmm.
another source. So that would be great to see. And to also know how to effectively write a contract. I think that is something that sometimes I struggle with. I know the basis of writing my own contracts, but it would be very helpful to know if there was like a template I could use or something to go off of to make sure it's correctly written.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds great. And like we said too, with this, because so this is about negotiating, but we didn't practice it, and it does help. And so that's something we could do in an advising session, one on one. We can role play, especially if you have something it could be made up, or if you've got something that you're like, oh, this is actually like, an active project. We can role play your situation where you're like, hey, let's talk equity or payment now that I've been working for you, for a year, and you're gonna, it sounds like, getting some money in. So I would say we can experiment with that, negotiating that. Um, a lot of the negotiating happens via, email or through proposals. It's kind of back and forth. So rarely will you find yourself negotiating in real time with someone. Um, and, but yeah, so I don't know if that helps.
Mhm.
Uh, okay,
For sure.
cool.
It works great. I also think I just I went on Connect and I found all the advising information. So
Good.
I made an appointment already. So
Awesome. That's great. And then I would say too, I'm going to be doing, so you all know, a basics of freelancing workshop, like a part 1, 2, 3, probably every term. And each one will cover a whole bunch of topics. And then there also are several that we have. So I can link some of those that we've done just recently, like I did one a couple weeks ago, and it covers contracts and terms and all of that. But I'll send some goodies for all of you. And then if there's anything else, you can always reach out to me. You can always email me. You can make an advising appointment because your questions are really helpful for me. Yeah, Mila.
I was thinking also, and I don't know if this fall more in the category of sales, but negotiating is also like a sale, right? Of
Mhm.
like how to close it in an engaging way with the client. Because like you can fall or also in the, oh, I'll let you know kind of thing with the client, and then you just there hanging, waiting. So how we make like all of this process, I invested my time in listening to you, making a proposal, and I kind of want to make sure that I'm going to receive an answer in a timely manner to know if this is going to happen or not. And like what resources can we use to actually retain this client in a way, if you feel like it's a potential good client, right? That you don't want, you will actually would like to work with them.
Yeah. That's a good question because a lot of this, we'll call this new business, is, you put time in researching,
Yeah.
taking the discovery calls. They don't all lead to paid work. There
Mm-hmm.
is a percentage of time and effort that you're going to put in. And this is like it's like business development is what this is, kind of the technical or the professional term. And there are people that projects that come, or time that you spend that isn't going to lead to a paying project. The best thing that you can do is be mindful about your time. If a client is asking for spec work, I would discourage you from doing it. That's what your portfolio is for. They can see the kind of work that you do. I think taking a discovery call, okay, so maybe it's an hour of your time. You might not get paid for that, right? If they end up going with someone else, because chances are they're probably talking to a couple different designers before they choose who they're going to go with, and that's kind of the nature of it. So you just want to make sure you're not spending a ton of time trying to get a client. You wouldn't want to spend time working on something, um, like a deliverable, without knowing you're going to get paid for it. But that unfortunately is part of the process. And actually, when you're thinking about what you want to get paid, yearly, because you start there, you're like, okay, what are my business expenses? What is my life? What do I need to make to like be able to live? Right? That's maybe student loans, that's food, that's rent, it's all the basic stuff. And then you figure out, okay, what do I want to make on top of that? Because that's all money going out the door. So you figure out what your number is. And then where was I going with this? Oh, I lost my train of thought. Um, I don't know. It'll come back to me. But essentially, doing this work ahead of time as a freelancer, of knowing kind of what you need to be making every month, will help you be mindful of how you're spending your time, right? Like if you're noticing, oh my gosh, this potential customer keeps reaching out to me and asking me questions and getting my advice, but they're not paying me. That's when you negotiate, you set a boundary. You're like, hey, I'd be happy to give you advice. I charge $100 an hour for consulting. Um, and so it's fine to like give them an hour or two to like build the relationship, and to kind of show them like, hey, this is what I know and this is how helpful I can be to you. But then, you know, being holding your boundary with kindness, you can be like, you know what, I love this project. I hope it leads to like, or I love helping you. And I need to be mindful of my time and my paying customers. My consulting fee is $100 an hour. Feel free to book some time with me. And so that's a way to just, make sure that you're getting paid for your time and not spending too much on someone who's not going to end up paying you.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And if you have something specific, Mila, you feel free again, like to book some time and we can talk about it. Because it's hard broadly when you have something that's a specific project or thing to talk about, then we can go deeper into it and
Yeah.
talk about specifics.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, we're at time, and thank you all for joining. And I hope it was helpful. And I'm happy to practice. And now you know I exist, and we're here to support you. I will send a follow-up email tomorrow with a kind of a one-pager of like what we talked about and some links, contract template, and a couple of the links to the basics of freelancing that covers a lot of this stuff as well. And hopefully you apply to Art Market. You're going to start seeing some promotions around that. And that's a great way for you to practice your entrepreneurial mindset. And we're going to be, to participate, there's going to be 2 mandatory workshops, and it's really to help you be successful. So we'll talk about pricing and payment options, how to take payments and how to, engage customers. So it really will be helpful if you've got some things to sell. Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, have a great evening, you all, and see you around.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Yeah. Yeah. Take care.